Hello and welcome to Living with Intention Live. I am April Wyatt, and I'm your host for this amazing conversation that we're going to have with two experts in their field. And we're talking about the human side of scaling, right? And it's about how growth changes people before it changes the numbers. That's what we're going to be talking about as different organizations expand, right? Something subtle happens. Decision making kind of tightens, responsibility collects in fewer hands, people, getting into the weeds of that. And so conversations tend to become more careful as this is shifting and expanding to scaling. And with that comes psychological safety, holding that container of support for the leader and the team. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about wellness and doing my best to give different perspectives of how wellness expands in different scopes. As I always say, there's an old saying, wherever you go, there you are. So whether you're at home, whether you're at work, at the grocery store, driving your car, there's still that subtle underlining, tone happening there. And today we're going to talk about how to understand what scaling is and how that affects the leader and the business, and also our own sense of self as things are shifting. And with that, I like to also key into community, right? This is what we're doing. We're talking about business relationships. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about the demographics of the workplace, and that's community. And community is so important to hold, so that way we have that trust, we have that space where we're connecting with each other in a little bit more authentic way. And I do this through connecting with others through my Bali retreats. And Bali is something that is very special to me, as I have had the pleasure of hosting a retreat in November of 2024, and I'm returning this October, the 10th through the 17th, and offering a space for people to relax, remember those parts of themselves, right? Not be so hard driven on the hamster wheel of life, right? We need that space to decompress, to literally breathe and rediscover who we are. And that's the beauty of Bali and this retreat. And that's why it's so dear to my heart. So not only are people going to experience some breath work, some movement meditation, moving the body, right? Our bodies are meant to move. And when we find ourselves in heightened situations, either at work or at home, we tend to freeze or flee. And so being in this space of Bali allows us to just unwind more, receive more parts of ourselves, and not just the breath work and the other experiences that we will explore, but also the culture. Bali is rich in culture. And so we're going to go on a waterfall tour. We're going to go to a local children's traditional Balinese dance school. We're going to watch the kids dance, and it's amazing to even watch them. They've been dancing since they were like 2, and just the way they move their bodies and they relate to the music and to each other. It's just wonderful to see. And then also we're going to explore a temple that's 3000 BCE and receive a water purification ceremony at sunrise. So that's what I love to do. I love to immerse in culture, learn more about ourselves in the process. That's what we're meant to do in life. We're meant to really learn and explore and discover. And that is all through the community, as I mentioned before. And speaking of community, this is how I met both Amy and Jesper, is through the Hounds of Business with Mike Asherbranner here, as you can see him. And it's a wonderful community for those professionals who are looking for a space to connect with other heart-centered professionals that want to engage, want to receive warm leads, connections. And that is really what that sustainable relationship comes from. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, the Hounds of Business, for bringing us together and creating this space. And also, we Hounds of Business is having March is Women's History Month. And so be on the lookout for that, as they're going to have some pretty amazing guests on their lives on Wednesday evenings to celebrate that. So I'm very excited to be part of that. So I want to bring up our amazing guests for today. We're going to welcome in Amy and Jesper. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Chris.
April, thank you for having us.
April.
Yes, it's good to see you. Yeah. We're just here having a conversation about all the things. Yes. What was that, Jesper?
I also just want to give a quick shout out to the Hounds of Business, incredible people, and it's made this conversation happen today.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And it is about community. It is about connecting with other people that you feel comfortable with. And that people, and I know that Amy's going to bring this up, but people that actually send you gifts in the mail, like Amy sent me her book. I mean, where else do you find that? People that truly care, and they're very genuine and authentic. And I think I know that's what sets the Hounds of Business apart from other communities. So I'm very happy to have you both here. Yes. So before we dive into today's conversation about the human side of scale and how leadership can sustain that, just tell us a little bit about you. Tell us, who you are and what you do. Jesper, would you mind sharing first?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Jesper McQuinning, based in Los Angeles, and I work with business owners who are stressed out and overwhelmed by this idea of HR. And what I do is turn their teams into higher performing cultures so that the business owner no longer has to feel like a bottleneck, and they don't have to go back and forth with their employees or team members, and they can finally gain back their time, focus, and energy.
That's so needed.
And when it comes to HR, it's really emphasizing that human part of human resources.
And do you work with, how big of a business do you work with?
Absolutely. So small business owners, they've made the transition from solopreneur to employer. They've actively started recruiting, so about 5 to 50, and they need that support in really getting everyone on their team aligned.
Yes, and that's so needed to have somebody like you to get them in alignment and having them have that in the very beginning so they don't have to go back and make those corrections. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jesper. It's amazing to have you here. So excited. Yeah. Amy, please introduce yourself and what wisdom do you share with others?
Hi, sure. I'm Amy Cornforth Long, and I've been a licensed attorney for going on 21 years. And I work with law firm owners to help them build a reliable and reputable team so they can reclaim their time. And my focus is boutique firm owners so that they can understand how to go ahead and know what goes into ownership and accountability and reliability, responsibility with their team so that the team can actually become confident from their perspective and from that team perspective, so that the owners can have the time to go ahead and scale up what we're talking about today.
Yeah, that's very neat. So much needed too. And you work with just attorney offices then?
I work with founders as well, but I speak the lawyer language being an attorney, and I understand the pressures. I've practiced in 3 boutique firms. I began as an assistant public defender. So I understand the pressures that go with representing clients and responding to judges and opposing counsel and their, what keeps them up at night. I understand it.
Yeah, that is a thing that happens, right?
Yes.
They're worried about their teams, how things are being performed. Are they a good leader? And I don't know if you can just turn your volume up just a little bit. Jesper, are you having a challenge hearing Amy as well, or is it just me?
I think
Is that better?
Can you hear
a
Amy?
little on the softer side.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Can you hear her, Jesper?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Maybe just use your voice, Amy. Project your voice.
I'll work on that.
There we go. I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay.
And so it's so important as both of you are sharing. And I really appreciate that the work that you do, as I've talked to you both, this is what I love to do. I'd love to connect with others and learn about what they do and why they do it and your passions. It's amazing. And so I thought to myself, wow, I want Amy on the show and I wanted Jesper on the show. And then I thought, well, here we go. We can talk about scaling here. And so as you talked and shared about what you do, and as I listened, right, neither of you are really talking about leadership as a personality trait. You're talking about structure, the clarity and responsibility, right, with that. And maybe that's where the organizations kind of struggle, as the teams grow, the weight doesn't disappear, it shifts. And if the systems don't evolve with that growth, responsibility begins to, become concentrated instead of distributed, right? The leaders hold more than the team. And the teams try and compensate. That's kind of what I kind of did a little bit of research on it too, right? Because this is a new thing for me as well. So what I would like to start here with is, from your experience, what actually creates that bottleneck that Jesper alluded to, right? What practical shifts allow trust and ownership, right, to move a little bit more fluidly through their team? Jesper, would you care to share your insights?
Absolutely. April, I like how you brought up the idea of leadership not being a personality trait, because there's an outdated view that this idea of leadership is all about charisma, it's all about energy. But as we look over time, we're realizing that when we look at leadership as the loudest person in the room, it doesn't lead to this sense of effectiveness, because the loudest person in the room might not be the most efficient one. The loudest person in the room might not be the most experienced one. The loudest person in the room might not be the most talented person there. So if we follow that sense of personality, it could lead to some poor decisions. On the other hand, when we look at this more newer view of leadership as a system, we can start to understand that it's very important for a leader to put processes in place so they can understand how they can make decisions and how to move forward. And in terms of the bottleneck, a lot of the reason many leaders fall into that is because they did not put any procedure or process in place. And as a result, they're improvising. And when something goes wrong, they still improvise. And after that moment of fixing something, they'll improvise the solution. On the other hand, when leaders are intentional and clear about what needs to get done, and if any problems show up, how to solve those, it gives that leader and the team just a better idea of how to move forward without making things up along the way. So it's easier for that decision making across the team.
Yeah, those are some really good points, Jesper. And it's so true. It's not the loudest person in the room that knows everything, right? That personality trait. And yeah, we can really unpack that one on a different on a different live. But I really enjoyed how you brought that up, because it's really important to understand the dynamics shifting, especially as you work, Jesper, with the solopreneur or the entrepreneur, and then shifting into owning the business. They're so used to managing everything themselves. And then when they bring in a team, it's kind of hard to let that go, right? And especially if they're not centered or grounded, and they're, on that survival mode to make things work. Yeah. How have you seen that, Amy, in your work? Yeah.
Sure. Well, something I wanted to reference related to the bottleneck that I talk about, and I'll quote Descartes on this, is break things down into their smallest parts. And
Oh, say that again.
break things down into their smallest parts.
Okay.
And that's Descartes. And so that is really imperative with the bottleneck, because leaders tend to think of delegation or accountability or ownership, responsibility, all of these large principles as all or nothings. I'm going to delegate this. Well, that's not one thing. It might be 100 things, 100 steps. And that is the biggest reason why someone's going to become and stay a bottleneck. So the biggest way to fix that, the easiest solution, is to break things down into their smallest parts, and then continue to break them down into their smallest parts until you can't break them again. And to your point about what you said about moving from solopreneur up to an entrepreneur that has several people working underneath them, and that trust that doesn't exist, and it's hard at first, you do that through breaking things down into their smallest parts. You don't have to trust someone with doing 100% of the most complex task in your business. Okay, so maybe you trust them with doing either 100% of the lowest risk process or 1% of the most complex process. And that is how you do that, just breaking things down into their smallest pieces. And that's just a core principle that I talk about.
Yes, you do. And actually, I have it
Yes,
on page, seriously, 111. Love the page number, 111. Baby bird steps.
absolutely. Yes,
Baby
I
bird steps.
that's a whole story, but yes.
Yeah. Can you just, in a nutshell, give that up, since we're talking about it, right? And I saw, Jesper, you nodding. So, I really want your feedback too. But tell us a little bit about those baby bird steps, Amy. And
Well, that phrase came off the cuff and it stuck. And what happened, so based on what I've just described, through my own lived leadership experiences, what I had learned early in law school was this concept of how imperative it is to break things down into their smallest parts. And that was applied early just through being able to do a trial. And so when I carried that through to different roles, I ended up, there was a large corporation where I was managing a department, and we had so many things to do. We had so many new people we were onboarding, processes. There was nothing written. There was just a lot to do, to say it plainly. And everyone was really excited because building is generally exciting. You get to be a part of something. You feel like you're contributing and you have purpose every day. And what I saw was, okay, how are we going to throttle so that we can leverage this momentum? Because we can't do this all in one day or in a quarter. There's so much. And everyone has heard the phrase baby steps. Well, that goes over your head because everyone says baby steps. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, baby steps. And just totally off the cuff, I said, no, we're going to have to take baby bird steps. And I was trying to fundamentally slow down and say, we have to move slow so that we keep our momentum and that we keep going, and we have to break these things down into their smallest parts so that we can be sustained, because we don't have 6 months of stuff here. We got years of stuff here to build and to do. And so that's where baby bird steps came from. And it caught on. That's what people started saying.
yes, I really love it, because I even see, like, just thinking about a little bird hopping, that is so little small, and their little feet are so small also, breaking it down. So that way it's easy, manageable. And then the growth happens, organically. It's not trying to jump, you know, yards, right? We're just going little centimeters here. Yeah, it's amazing. And I just want to shout out to Shauna Lee was here from California, and also Lisa Feverek. Great to have you here. And then Halea is just really enjoying this conversation right now. So thank you for tuning in and supporting us here. Yeah, Jesper, what are your thoughts about managing these steps?
Absolutely. Amy brought up a valuable distinction, and it is the difference between simplicity and complexity. And especially when it comes to the topic of scaling, many business owners that I've found have believed that, oh, since I'm growing, since I'm scaling, it's becoming more complex. That's just the way it is. Now, on the one hand, yes, as we grow and scale, things do become more complex, but staying stuck is a choice. And if that mindset sticks through, that won't lead to any meaningful results. But on the other hand, as Amy said, when business owners, business leaders take those steps and break it down to something smaller, that'll just make it easier for everything to get through.
Yes. Can you give us just an example, as you've been working with businesses, Jesper, and shifting that? Because it's, I could not even imagine, like, me being a solopreneur right now and moving into having a team, having 50 employees. How would that look? I know there's
Absolutely.
a lot to unpack, but
Absolutely. So, specifically in the realm of human resources, when I meet with a business owner, it's common for so many questions to just get thrown at you. Oh, how do we do this? How do we do this? What does it look like with this? Should we do this? Should we do this differently? What can we keep? What can we change? And then what I do is, instead of looking at the whole system as one, I'll break it down. So when it comes to HR, again, let's look at the smaller processes. What does hiring look like? And then within that, look at the different processes within that. What does recruiting look like? And then within that, we'll take a deeper dive. What does retention look like? We'll take a deeper dive. What does termination look like? We'll take a deeper dive. Onboarding, again, it's taking the different pieces, separating them out just to see how it all fits, instead of dealing with the entire situation in one go. It's all about breaking down the smaller steps.
Yeah, thank you for unpacking that. It reminds me of I just saw, as you said, all these different components, right? You get a 2,000 piece puzzle, right? And you open that box and there's all these pieces all over the place. And you're the person that says, okay, let's find the straight edge. Let's get the border here, and then let's get the different color schemes, let's get those compiled, and then start placing those pieces together. That's what I envisioned as you shared that, Jesper. Yeah,
that's right. Getting just the different parts of it, instead of looking at the overall 2,000 piece puzzle, and instead of feeling overwhelmed, look for the corners, look for certain pieces, certain patterns, certain themes, and work from there.
Yes. Yeah. And Amy, you I can't imagine the complexity is, as Jasper said, right? The difference between simplicity and complexity. There's a lot of things to unpack when working with teams like that. What wisdom, what insights do you have to share about when you approach somebody who says, my team is just working against me, and I don't know what to do. I've been telling them what they need to do, and they're just not listening to me. I can just even imagine that, right? With these high level professionals. What wisdom do you have to share about that?
Well, we make it simple really quickly. And the first thing I'm going to say is let's talk about what's in your head. because no
Yes.
no one can read your mind. And when you spoke about the puzzle, and when Jasper was talking essentially about the foundations of things, what's in your head as a leader is a foundation. And as leaders, it is so hard for us to be able to get what's out of our head and extract that in a meaningful way where people can understand our expectations. But if that is not the foundation and the starting point, then none of the other stuff matters. Everything else will fail. You cannot put the puzzle together and you can't build the house. And this is another core concept that I talk about a lot through my articles is, you know, when someone says, "Can you take a look at this?" What does that mean? Today, by noon, this year? Everyone has their own interpretation, and you get, comfortable working with people, and you don't even realize that you think that they can read your mind, and they cannot. And the
What?
thing
You
is
can't
you
tell
don't
me
even
that's
know.
not true, Amy. They can't read our minds. What?
But these are the things that help you make things simple really quickly, but it takes a lot of extraction. It can be a little bit cumbersome because you really have to work on getting that out of your own head. What does ownership mean?
Hmm.
What do these words mean? Because everyone has their own definition, and understanding that you're on the same page is different than being on the same page, thinking you're on the same page, all of those things. And so that's that's the first thing I would say.
Yeah, and it sounds a lot like, communication.
Hmm.
And with anything, communication is key for any relationship. I don't care if it's business or personal. How are we communicating? And it sounds like you're asking, what's in your head and how can we bring that out and communicate a little clearer for people?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Jasper, I know that you communicate very well. What are your thoughts about maybe some challenges that uh, these new business owners are having in communicating with their teams?
Absolutely. And I want to go back to a point that Amy brought up, and it was this concept of mind reading. And it's not uncommon for a business leader to think, oh, I know what good is. Why can't other people see that same sense of good? But in reality, what's common sense to one person may not be common sense to another. And it's really important to set up that clarity. And when it comes to those business owners who are adding more team members, with communication, it's it's really looking for the right avenues and the channels, because not everyone communicates the same way, whether by email, whether by phone, whether by text, especially in today's world where we're seeing more remote and hybrid work. And it's really important for the leader or the business owner to understand what is the best way someone communicates, because if a business owner is using a group chat to connect with everyone, but not everyone uses group chat, it
Ah, yeah.
defeats the purpose of really connecting. If someone prefers a phone call instead of a text message, very important to adapt to that as well, because some people prefer to use the phone or prefer not to use the phone. Really important to adapt to that. And when it comes to communication overall, it's just finding that way to uh, clarify the message, the values, and the mission that a business owner is trying to build. That way, people really understand and get a better idea of what they can do to get everyone aligned as far as how they're communicating.
Yeah, communication is it can be very challenging for people, and even for us, in our own personal lives. And so it's really important to just understand, yes, people can't be mind readers. I've been married for 37 years and, I'm still wondering about it. Yeah. And so as we're talking about this, we're discovering that the leaders, the founders, right? They're carrying far more than their roles require of them. And so what point does over functioning begin to quietly kind of distort the leadership culture? What structures or changes can, relieve this decision fatigue without, sacrificing the structure there? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that really goes back to the idea of the bottleneck. When a business owner or business leader is feeling overwhelmed and burnt out and possibly working 7 days a week, that's a sign that they need to find something to change it, whether adding a new team member or looking for a more valuable task to work on, like the Pareto principle, that 20-80 rule where 20% of the work leads to 80% of the results. Finding something that's more meaningful instead of doing all of the work on their own, because again, that can lead to that burnout and overwhelm. When it comes to building out that structure, it is knowing the workflow of the tasks and projects that they're working on and making sure everyone else has a better understanding of how that workflow looks like for everyone. Because if those processes aren't clear, it's just going to lead to a bottleneck for everyone. So it's really finding that clarity for the process.
Yeah,
really,
I love that.
protect those systems.
Starting out with the bottleneck, understanding that, then going to communication, and then, alleviating, the possible burnout. I saw that you were nodding and wanting to probably share there, Amy, about your experiences or understanding more about that.
Well, pardon me. I wanted to go back to something on communication. So I wrote an article several months ago called Stop Trying to Be Clear. And I just wanted to pass out this little tip where it might sound abstract or a bit different, but instead of trying to be clear, just assume that you're not clear. And what that does is it lowers all of your, you talked about decision fatigue. And so there's a lot of fatigue involved in thinking that you are clear and trying to be clear. And you remove that energy when, yeah, you try to be clear, but you also end the thought in your mind with, but, in reality, I probably wasn't. And I just need to be prepared for when they come back. And so that instead of thinking all the time, I'm clear, what you say to yourself is, I clarify. I clarify. And you give yourself more thought power and energy. All of a sudden you take down what you're talking about, that decision fatigue and the trying to resist this concept of figuring it all out, making sure you told someone everything and being clear. And now you've embraced, I'm not always clear, but what I do is I clarify. And that's how you get the energy.
I love that. I love that. So tell me more about the energy. Like what happens when they realize that it's not being clear, but
Well, it's about clarifying. So it's not something that you are. If you say I'm clear, which we all say that. We've all been there and said, I'm clear. I was clear. That's like you're thinking that you're a state and you're not. You're not a thing or a state. What you do is you have to think about it as you clarify. And so when you're working with people or if you're talking with, your friends or your spouse, it's not about asking yourself, was I clear? It's about asking yourself if you are in a mindset that you clarify. And so what I'm trying to describe is that's how you get the energy, because you lower yourself down from this resistance that you weren't clear. You just assume you weren't clear. You're going to need to clarify because that's just real life.
Yeah, and clarifying then makes us ask, am I breaking it down like those little baby bird steps you're talking about?
Well, and what it does, let me interject something here,
Yes,
because I
please.
talk about this in my article too, is what it does is when you think I am clear, I was clear, and then someone comes and asks you follow-up questions.
Obviously you weren't.
Well, but you have a moment where
Yeah.
you might be gently embracing the questions, or you might be flying off the handle frustrated. Okay. And either way, whatever you're at on that spectrum, that is resistance in your mind, and that is taking your energy. And so, what
Mhm.
I'm talking about is when you remove this concept of I am clear, then you set yourself up that you don't even have to get over that speed bump. You just immediately, when someone comes, you're like, so glad you asked. Let's clarify. Do,
Yes. I get it. Yes. And I really love that, Amy. And also it's letting go of the expectations that when we say something, we expect others to completely understand it because we were quote unquote clear about it. That's that it's kind of a judgment, it can be, right? And how many times this person got to ask me this, and
mhm.
and then you saying, okay, let's clarify this, welcoming the questions, learning from your team, learning more about yourself. We're not perfect. Jesper, I see your head nodding, agreeing to what Amy's saying. Yeah.
I would say Amy just reminded me of a specific leadership mindset. And I've met managers who believe that they're always clear the first time. And when a team member approaches them with a question, it leads to finger pointing. Oh, maybe this team member is not competent. In reality, it was likely the instructions as well, because it may have been a complex task that required further discussion. And as April, you mentioned, really being open to those questions and learning how everyone can move together in a more productive way. I think that's the better way to go about it. So it just reminded me of that type of manager who they're convinced they're clear from the start, but in reality, it needs to be a deeper conversation that helps everyone grow together.
Exactly. We want to grow together. I hope that the leaders, that the founders, see that as it's just not a business. This is an entity. This has the energy of just not the team, but how they're connecting to the community, how they're interacting. Uh, it, it looks brick and mortar, but it's more than that. So much more than that. So I have another I have another question for you all, since I have these wonderful experts here, and I hope everybody's enjoying this, talking about scaling on the human side, and so scaling fast could be one thing, but scaling in a way that holds people steady is another. And so, from your perspective, what distinguishes leadership that endures? And what must exist inside a system for people and performance, right? To strengthen each other rather than compete against each other. I know that was a lot to unpack there.
April, that's an excellent question. I would say there's this sense of urgency when it comes to scaling. There's so many business owners and business leaders that want to grow as quickly as possible, and I can see that because it leads to results. On the other hand, what I would say is that sense of scaling intentionally. It's about aligning to the values, aligning to the why, aligning to the purpose, giving everyone the opportunity to see what the business is striving for. As you said, it is about that entity. A business is an entity. And when we can identify what it's striving for, everyone just gets a better idea of how to scale the business in a more productive way.
Thank you, Jesper. Yeah, Amy, what are your thoughts about that?
I really just have one thought, and I don't get credit for this. I didn't say it, but it's go slow to go fast. I mean, that's just the
Yeah,
essence of it. Go slow to go fast.
it is. It is. And when we slow down, instead of pushing to pushing the team, pushing whatever product or whatever vision that we have, we need to make sure that we have that space and going slow, taking those little steps, realigning, readjusting, and maybe even accepting it, accepting that it's not going to go as fast as we want it to go. In fact, it never does it, Amy?
No.
I see Jesper shaking his head as well. Yeah.
It just reminds me of the story of the tortoise and the hare, where they were both racing, and then the hare was just moving so quickly, decided to take a break towards the end, but because the hare was just lost focus, the tortoise ended up winning the race because the tortoise was just consistent throughout the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it is that consistency.
Exactly. Slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. Yes. And also, I want to bring it back to the wellness component, right? The psychological safety. If people don't feel that their leader is in a present state, isn't aware or listening, tuning in to the temperature of the room, being there with their team, learning from each other, right? That's creating that psychological safety so people feel comfortable to ask those questions. That, or they'll just shut down, right? They'll freeze, or we're human. We learn from past experiences and behaviors. And so if they're going from one job to the next and they're carrying that with them, and they bump up against a manager or the owner who's very headstrong, and then right away it's like, oh, that's just like so and so, here I am again, and and they're going to be like this, those false pretenses, those the schemas that we carry, then push upon that environment, that in the workplace. How do you kind of untangle that? How do you help leaders see that? I'm curious. This is my own question, because I'm all about somatics in the body, and people will go with the feelings first rather than pausing, bringing in emotional intelligence and asking themselves, is this really happening, or is this my old stuff? So how do you help leaders and teams to kind of untangle possible situations where people aren't feeling safe to communicate, to expand?
I have something I wanted to say related to this. So this reminds me of something I talk about related to delegation. And if you're the leader, how you need to be able to come around to a certain mindset dealing with delegation, and not so much thinking of what can I delegate, what can I have others do or help me with, but thinking of being okay with mistakes. And that goes to the safety, and always thinking, what are the learning opportunities in my firm, my team, my organization, my business, for other people? And that's where the delegation comes in. And you have to have that mindset shift, that delegation isn't first and foremost for other people to do things for the business. If it's first and foremost for them to learn something new, because then they're going to do something for the business that you no longer have to do. That's going to shift your mindset. And when you work on that, you have to break those down into their smallest pieces related to the risk benefit analysis with the level of mistakes that can be involved.
Mm.
And thinking that through, because you really want someone to be able to learn something new, and it'd be okay to make mistakes. And so
Ah,
that's what I would say. And that's why it's not about that all or nothing. Going back to what I spoke at the beginning, those breaking things down into their smallest pieces, 1%, 2% of a task, and build that up. And so that they have what you're talking about, the psychological safety, they feel vulnerable to make a mistake, to learn this. And that's how you go slow to go fast.
Thank you, Amy, for putting that all together. Yes, it's so true. Jesper, I saw you nodding also about that.
So for the concept of being emotionally grounded, especially the transition for a entrepreneur to go from solopreneur to business owner, over time, this uh, entrepreneur has realized, oh, I built this. This is my baby. All the decisions I've made to this point have made me this successful and got me here. And when it comes to listening to their other team members, it becomes difficult, but it really is important to let go, because if a business owner continues to stick with the old way of doing things, they might end up doing all of the work where they have a team, but it's an illusion because they're delegating really minor tasks, but the strategy and uh, growth for what they're trying to do over the long term might not translate very well. So it is very important, as Amy said, delegation. And it's important to view delegation as, yes, as Amy said, one, that opportunity to learn, and two, the opportunity to take things off our plate, again, because that's just going to lead to burnout and overwhelm if a business owner continues to do everything on their own.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for that, both of you. Just, unpacking that, because there is so much for a leader, for an owner, for that entrepreneur who's going into their own business and managing a team. That's a lot of things. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and we want it to go so well, and yet we don't understand how us being clear and not clarifying things can really kind of erode the team too. And it comes from, we really have those good intentions, but as I always say, put your attention on your intention. How is it coming across? What feedback are you receiving? Is there still a lot of questions? Then having to ask ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror, am I being, am I clarifying? Am I taking the little bird steps? Am I rushing, pushing everybody too fast? And then also understanding the dynamics of the team. You're going to have those people like, give me something, I'll do it. And then there's going to be those different personalities of, okay, I have this, I need to process it. I need to see how all the pieces, come together. We have amazing strengths on our teams, and we need to understand how to implement them. Those people, delegation, as Amy said, is so important to understand who is the most receptive, or that delegating task, right? Who is that best for? So before we close out, I know we can keep this conversation going. There's so much to unpack. Please just let us know what's coming up for you. Let us know. I know in the description, I put in Amy's book in the link, this description on LinkedIn. I'll pop over to YouTube too. And also in the comments, I'll put that in there too. It's going to be a long link though, people. But Jesper, what's coming up for you? How do you want people to connect with you?
Absolutely. So I am hosting a 3-day event next month from March 3rd to March 5th. It is called the Scale Beyond the Founder Summit. And it is an opportunity for business owners to really get a better understanding of the different processes and systems that can take place as they scale their business. And we will have speakers who will share those different insights, ideas, and strategies to help business owners scale what they're trying to build. And to connect with me, I am very active on LinkedIn. Search for me, Jesper Mukundeng. I really enjoy having conversations about leadership development, team building, company culture, HR, personal development, you name it. Really enjoy those conversations.
Yeah, and there's Jesper's link on the bottom there. He's a wealth of knowledge. I really enjoyed connecting with you, Jesper. You have so much depth. There's so much more to you than just the HR too. And I really hope that people do reach out, get more information from Jesper, especially if you're thinking about starting a small business. He's your guy. He's a person that is very heart-centered and truly cares about community and wants you to succeed too. So thank you so much, Jess, for being here. I appreciate you, and good luck on that summit. And I hope people register for that for sure. Amy.
Thank you, April.
You're welcome.
Oh, I would just love...
You're up next, dear.
Yes.
How do people connect with
turn.
you? Yeah. What's coming up for you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. If any of this resonated, I would love to connect or hear from you. And as you showed, I have my book, The Subtle Art of Leadership. That's it.
That's it? There's so much more, Amy. So much more.
Well, I do have a newsletter too on LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
It's also called The Subtle Art of Leadership. Connect with me there.
So who are you looking to connect with?
Law firm owners and founders.
Okay.
That are looking to, they need to build a team, or they're looking to go ahead and be able to have the team, leverage the team for why they hired a team, I would say.
Yes. And are they usually already have established, right? And they just need some support there to leverage their team? Yes.
So they're not the bottleneck.
Yes, exactly. No bottlenecks here. We don't want bottlenecks. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being here today. And if you could give a little insight to those. There's a question for you. As teams grow and that pressure increases, such as the bottleneck we're talking about, what is one leadership behavior you've seen that quietly builds the trust and steadiness in a team over time? What have you noticed? What is like a little golden nugget to share with others of a behavior that helps to build the trust and steadies a team over time? What do you think is the number one thing that people have done?
I would say trusting yourself.
Jesper?
I would say walking the walk and talking the talk, because I've met business owners who say one thing and then they don't follow through with in front of their employees. And at the same time, I've seen business owners who really stay integrated to what they say, and that really aligns with what everyone is striving for. So it really is being congruent with what you're trying to stand for. And then employees do watch that.
And literally, this is a psychological safety again, right? If somebody trusts themselves, if they know who they are and they show up every day, first and foremost for themselves, and not a selfish way, but in that way, and then that literally ripples out to the team and to the business. And just as you're saying, Jesper, you talk the talk, walk the walk, you live it every day. It's just not, I'm checking out, at 5 o'clock, maybe 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock or whatever. And then I'm doing this over here. You're carrying that forward, wherever you go, there you are. That's what I said in the very beginning. So thank you, my friends. Thank you for being here. It was so fun getting to know you a little bit more and hearing these insights of the human side of scaling and how to create sustainable leadership, as you both have amazing wisdom for that. And I hope people reach out and connect with you, grab Amy's book, register for Jesper's event. And I hope that everyone keeps living with intention.
Thank you, April.
Be well.